In Game 4, Adelaide hunted Kendrick Davis on switches that allowed Bryce Cotton to attack KD, but in Game 5, Sydney changed the equation completely. Instead of asking whether Kendrick Davis could guard Cotton one-on-one, they decided he wasn't going to get the chance. The answer was hits. Quick, aggressive pressure designed to get the ball out of his hands before Adelaide could flow into isolation or mismatched basketball. It didn't fully work at first. Cotton still got going in the opening quarter, but Sydney kept coming back to it, and over the rest of the game, that pressure became one of the biggest reasons they were able to win. Let's break down the adjustment that changed the flavour of Game 5. So what exactly is a hit? Originally, this was an end-of-quarter tactic to help win the possession game. Let's say your team is on defense with 20 seconds left in the game clock and shot clock turned off. Instead of just letting the offense hold for one shot and accepting that disadvantage, the defense would send aggressive pressure early, often in the backcourt when the offense wasn't expecting it, in order to force a quicker shot or a turnover and try to create enough time to get the last possession back. So at its core, a hit is about disrupting control of the possession. Now over time, teams have expanded that idea. It's not just about late clock possession stealing anymore. It's also a way to blow up offensive rhythm, especially against a primary creator. If you know a team wants to play through one guy, a hit is a way of saying, we're not letting him play comfortably and we're not letting him play in space. That's what Sydney were trying to do with Cotton. They weren't just trapping for the sake of trapping, they were trying to take the game off of his terms before Adelaide could get in the action it wanted, which was to expose Kendrick Davis on defense like they did in Game 4. So here, with 7:12 remaining in the first quarter, you got one of the early hits from Sydney. Cooks comes from Cotton's right side, which makes sense because Sydney are trying to force Cotton right and shrink the space. Now in theory, the hit does its first job. It gets the ball out of Cotton's hands. But what Adelaide do really well here is Cheatham lifts into that middle window and catches around the nail. Once that happens, Sydney overreacts. The defense gets pulled into the catch by Asylum Cheatham. The backside shape breaks down, and now the pass to Humphries for the bucket is there. On this next one, the initial action works pretty well. Malawatch comes off of Flynn Cameron, and that helps trigger the pressure and force the ball movement. The possession ends with Flynn Cameron taking a free, and Sydney will rather live with that, even though Flynn Cameron is capable, than Bryce making a play. But then comes the killer. Rakocevic gets the offensive rebound, and this is where Galloway, who was Cotton's primary defender's play, makes a really costly mistake. He goes looking for the defensive rebound instead of staying aware of the most dangerous shooter on the floor. Once the ball gets kicked back out of the offensive board, Cotton's the one who ends up getting a clean look and he knocked down to three. On this next one, Cooks comes again, and the pressure forces Cotton to give it up under a little more stress than he'd like. The ball finds its way to John Jenkins in the corner, and that is a shot that Sydney didn't want to give up. Jenkins misses it, but beyond the miss is the quality of the pass needs to be looked at. Because of Cook's length and where the hit is coming from, Cotton just can't fire a clean, easy pass right into Jenkins' shooting pocket. The angle is awkward, the delivery slightly off, and that can affect the shot preparation. Now on this one, things get interesting because Sydney changed the timing of the hit. Instead of waiting until late clock, KD comes to hit in the middle third of the possession. That's different from the early examples where most of the hits are coming with under 6 on the shot clock and more about blowing up the end of possession. Here, Sydney go earlier. The weak side is caught napping, the rotation doesn't arrive on time, and that leaves John Jenkins open the corner for a much cleaner look this time. So through the first quarter, Adelaide are actually getting pretty good results against a hit. The logic of the coverage makes sense from Sydney's point of view. Get the ball out of Cotton's hands, stop the clean mismatch attack, and force someone else to make the next read. But early on, Adelaide are handling it quite well. What's important though is that Sydney don't abandon it. They stay with the coverage. Against Sydney's hits coverage, Adelaide scored just 0.58 points per possession from quarter 2 all the way through to overtime. For context, they scored 1.15 points per possession for the game overall. So even though the first quarter had some answers from Adelaide, overtime this coverage starts doing exactly what Sydney wanted to do. This is a good example here with 6:25 to go in the third. The hit comes, but this time Adelaide don't get the same release that they had earlier. No one lifts to the nail, and there's no easy middle catch. The ball sticks, and the advantage never gets created. Eventually, DJ Vasiljevic is left taking a contested pull-up free off the bounce, which he misses. That's a win for Sydney, not because the trap directly creates a turnover, but because it completely distorts the flow of the possession and forces Adelaide in a shot they don't really want. Here at 5:25 to go in the third, Cotton does a good job initially. He rips against the hit and gets downhill into the paint. But Adelaide are in a 1-4 flat spacing to try and counter their hit coverage, and the downside of that is there's no room once he gets in the paint. Sydney are able to crowd the drive. The ball ends up finding John Jenkins in the corner, but he's run off the 3-point line, and Adelaide ends up with a contested 2-point miss. With 1:55 to go in the third quarter, here's another example. Adelaide moves the ball well out the hit. They find Vukocevic with a mismatch against KD. Instead of getting a clean look, Vukocevic commits an offensive foul and Adelaide lose possession again.
Matches Vukocevic on Kendrick Davis. He turns and use of the elbow. The foul's going to be on Vukocevic. It's number 4.
Once again, this is a win for Sydney as they force someone else to make a decision to take advantage of a mismatch rather than Bryce Cotton. And the one everyone probably remembers, with 2:10 to go in the fourth quarter, Sydney go to a mid-shot clock hit, and this time it leads to a turnover from Cheatham.
Trickles out of court. Adelaide turn it over for the 7th time in the game, including 3 of those in this last quarter.
And then in the first play of overtime, KD makes a great read on the hit. He jumps the action and it leads to a live ball turnover. Not only has this denied Cotton a shot and got it out of his hands, but it's also led to an easy bucket down the other end.
Feeds Galloway, alley-oop play. Torrey Craig's got his first field goal.
Over the course of the night, Bryce Cotton was still brilliant. This isn't a story about Sydney shutting him down, because they didn't. It's a story about Sydney deciding if they were going to win this game, they could not let Adelaide play through Cotton comfortably for 40 minutes. It got the ball out of the hands often enough, it created enough broken possessions, and generated enough empty trips that Sydney were able to force overtime. And honestly, it's a credit to Cotton's brilliance that Sydney felt they needed to go to one of the more extreme defensive strategies you'll see at any level to shift the terms of the series. They didn't beat Bryce by making him irrelevant, they bet Adelaide by making every possession around him harder.
Cotton, nice pass, Humphries with a finish.
Cotton evades the double team, slices and dices his way and sets up Humphries for a monster 2-hand slam.